Okay, we're going to take a look at another old game. Now, this one is Caesar Alesia. Now, it was originally called just Elesia, and it came out in 1971 from Robert Bradley, and was published by an obscure company called Thesis Games, and became very popular with Ancients fans. And Avalon Hill picked the game up and published it in 1976, and they called it Caesar, the Epic Battle of Elesia. And an epic battle it is. Now we're going to look at the board and the pieces, and I'll tell you a little bit about this classic game. Now the counters to the game were perfectly serviceable, but they're a bit dated by today's standards. We can see the Gallic units there. Each of them has a tribal name in very, very small print. And you can see the Romans. They're all one color, so every legion is the same color. It's very hard to distinguish between the legions. The black on the red is not a very good color choice. Now the slinger units are a slightly different color. They're kind of pinkish, as are the cavalry, and the forts are gray. So what I decided to do was redo the counters, borrowing heavily from the GMT SPQR graphics. I kind of made my own counters. Now they're a little rough looking. It's only what I can produce on my home printer, but I just find them superior. And I decided to at least give the legions different colors. And I made the Elesia force inside blue, and the forces relieving Elesia from the outside kind of a yellow. Now I'm going to show you the original pieces and explain the siege, and show you why this is such a great game. Okay, the game comes with a 15-page rulebook, but there's only about 9 pages of actual rules. But they are done in very fine print. They're illustrated, and it's not a difficult game to learn. And it's got the old hard zones of control mechanisms that we all grew up with for you veteran wargamers. There's nothing really, really difficult here. And there's some great designer's notes too. So, and your combat table on the back, and you've got your terrain effects chart there inside. So it is by no means a difficult game, but it's mainly the situation at Elesia that is so fascinating, and that's what I'm going to show you first before we look at some of the other game aspects. Now, Elesia is one of the most famous battles in history. I dare say the present generation knows very little about it, but anyone who studies ancient history will certainly be aware of it, and anyone who is a Julius Caesar fan will know of this classic battle and siege. The situation is this. We have the town of Elesia here, and the Gauls under Vercingetorix are holed up in the town of Elesia. Caesar comes forth with several legions and surrounds the town of Elesia with a set of entrenchments. That's this inner line here. Now, prior to the complete encirclement, Vercingetorix managed to get his cavalry out of Elesia, and they went out into Gaul in general to rise up the nation against the Romans. So we've got this classic situation of a army besieged in Elesia, surrounded by entrenchments under Caesar and Labienus, and a relieving army of Gauls coming from the outside. Now Caesar is aware of this relieving army, so what he does is he does a second set of entrenchments around his inner circle, facing outwards to face this relieving army. This is amazing. I can't think of any other siege in history where this kind of thing occurred. And it shows you the daring and the boldness of Caesar. Now, historians argue about the numbers. I think we have to take a notch off some of the numbers mentioned. The relieving army was said to be 250,000 men. That's a lot of men. Caesar's army would be, I think it's around 40,000, 50,000. I'm not sure of the exact numbers. These two armies are about equal in size, but it's more the situation than anything else that is so darned interesting. So in the game, the player has several options as the Gaulish player. He's got this tricky balance to coordinate the Gauls sallying out of Elesia and coordinating with the relieving army coming in from the outside. It's a delicate balancing act. And in the game, you have this off-board chart, which I'm going to show you, and we'll see how that works. Okay, now that's the off-board movement chart, and the relieving Gallic army starts in area number 1. Now the edge of the board has various areas, example 3, 4, 5, 2, and there's area 1. That's where the relieving army historically came in, actually from here in Mount Rhea. So in the game, the Gallic player can have his relieving army come in from board edge 1, or he can spend one turn and come in from area 2, or spend another turn, come in from area 3. Likewise the other direction. So the Roman player will not know where or when the Gallic player is going to come in his rear. Now, it's not all for the Gallic player either, because at the same time, if he wastes time having this relieving army outflank, then he's burning up precious time on the assault period chart. Because the game Elesia can only have 2 days of battle, and that's represented by this assault period chart. So you've got this situation again, time, which is against the Gauls. They have to get this army out. I think historically Vercingetorix's men had just about exhausted their supplies. And if this relieving army was 250,000 men, it couldn't stick around for very long. The Gauls just didn't have the logistics to supply such a large army. So that's the general situation at Elesia, and our friend and I are going to try it today. So I've just set up a Roman defense, but whether that's a great defense, I don't know. I'm not experienced with the game. Critical to the game is the placement of these forts. The Roman player gets 23 of them, which he places around the perimeter. Whether he faces them to the out or the in, I don't know. I'm not experienced enough with it. Now, the victory conditions to the game are very simple. For the Gauls, it's one thing. Get their Vercingetorix counter off the board. That's it. Now, that seems ridiculously simple, but boy, in achieving it, that's the game. It's difficult. If Vercingetorix gets himself in any zone of control, he's destroyed and the Romans win. That's the way the Gauls have to win. They have to get Vercingetorix off. For the Romans to win, they have to prevent that. Simple victory conditions, but this game is a gold mine of alternatives. There's been several articles about the game in the general. I know Ancients fans just love the game, and it's a shame this is out of print. But Ancients games have never been very, very popular. Certainly with Avalon Hill they were not popular, and eventually it did go out of print. But you can get copies kicking around. I just got this copy now, and I'm very anxious to try it. I'll just show you my counters here. Again, I'm borrowing heavily from the SPQR counters. I just borrowed some of the graphics there and kind of made my own counters. So they're the simple 5-8. 5 is the combat number, 8 is the movement. And I just made different colors for the different legions. The Gaul players are exactly the same, except I named the tribes a bit more prominently. Now, that doesn't matter in the game, by the way, the tribes, nor does the legion designation. Now, I will say that this game does not replace the game SPQR or the Great Battles of History system done by GMT. Those are fine tactical games, Ancients, and I think they're great. But their Elesia game is not as good as this one, in my opinion. It's just, I don't know, Great Battle system doesn't seem to work for that, this battle as well. This is a classic game in every sense of the word. I think you're going to have lots of hours of enjoyment playing it, and I don't think that one game is going to be like another. Now later on I'm going to do a video on Siege of Jerusalem, which is another great ancient siege game, but that's for the future. Unless anyone be concerned about my views towards the Great Battle System, I do have several too. I've got War Galley and Caesar and Conquest of Gaul, and I've bought Alexander and Chariots of Fire, so I'm certainly a fan of the Great Battle System. But I had to explore this game because I've read so much about it. It's been around for years on eBay and Marketplace, so I thought I'd pick myself up a copy, and I'm going to give it a try today. So that's all I have to say about Caesar Elesia. Everything I've read says it's a great game. I have not played it, so I can't comment on gameplay, but I've seen articles saying that it's Roman biased. I've seen articles saying it's biased in favor of the Gauls, which is always a good sign about a good balanced game. So I don't know. If you can pick up this game, I think it is well worth having. I'll know more about it after I play it today, but I highly suspect it's going to be a very good game. So that's it for Caesar, the Epic Battle of Elesia by Avalon Hill, produced in 1976. Okay, this is an addenda, or appendix, we might say, to the my little review of Caesar. My friend Harry and I finished the game today. We got to turn number 9. Harry took the Gauls, I took the Romans, and we called the game in favor of the Gallic player because the Gallic player was able to bust the Roman line here, get a corridor through, and though I'm holding him off on other fronts here, it was clear to see that Vercingetorix was going to be able to get off the board in about 4 turns. He'd cross the river this turn, and he'd be able to exit off the board. So we called it in favor of the Gauls on turn 9. We've been playing most of the day. We had a lot of fun. If I had to rate the game for enjoyment, I give it like a 9. I think it's a fine game. You have to live with sort of the battle mechanics that existed at the time in the 70s, 1970s. But I do not change my opinion of this game. I think it's a great game. So that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching.